Imagine if the God that everyone prays to, the one people believe is loving and good, was actually a monster, the most evil being of all. This is precisely what a forgotten secret book named The Gospel of Judas asserts, poised to upend your entire worldview. You've probably heard of Judas before. He's the guy who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Everyone thinks he's one of the biggest villains in history. But what if there's more to the story? This secret gospel, which was hidden from the world for centuries, says that the God people pray for is actually the devil in disguise. A treasure hunter discovered it in Egypt in the 1970s. However, instead of sharing it with the world, someone stole it. It was hidden away in a box for years, forgotten like some dark secret no one wanted to talk about. Finally, it was revealed to the public, and people couldn't believe what they saw. In this gospel, Judas wasn't as bad as we think. It says Jesus only trusted Judas with the biggest secret. The other disciples were worshipping the wrong God. An evil force was tricking them, and only Judas knew the truth. The church was reluctant to share this information due to the potential for drastic changes. It's like someone pulling back the curtain and revealing that everything you thought was good was actually a nightmare. Around the 2nd century, before 180 CE, a church leader named Saint Irenaeus condemned the Gospel of Judas in his book Against Heresies. At that time, the church labeled anything that didn't align with its teachings as heresy, a dangerous lie. The church concealed this gospel to prevent people from challenging their authority or beliefs. Well, this gospel didn't just paint Judas in a better light. It suggested that the God the other disciples were worshipping wasn't God at all. In fact, the gospel claims that the God who created the world was actually an evil, chaotic being, a ruler of darkness. And that's where things get really wild. According to this secret gospel, Jesus didn't come from this false God. He came from a higher, divine realm, the real source of light and truth. This is the fear that the Gospel of Judas instills in us. It asks us to question whether we've been fooled all along. That's precisely why it posed such a significant threat to the early church. If people were to believe this gospel, it would undermine everything they were teaching. According to the gospel, Jesus had no respect for the other disciples. In fact, he told Judas that they were worshipping this false god without even realizing it. The other disciples were blind to the truth, trapped in their beliefs, but Judas was different. Despite his flaws, Judas was the only one Jesus could talk to about the universe's secrets. Jesus reveals that the God who created Adam and Eve, the ones we hear about in the book of Genesis, was actually an evil being. This being, sometimes called the demiurge or ruler of chaos, was responsible for trapping humanity in the material world, and that's where Judas comes in. He wasn't betraying Jesus because he was greedy or evil. He was helping Jesus escape this false god's plan. But the most dangerous idea in this gospel wasn't just that Judas knew the truth. It was that the church, which claimed its power came from the disciples, had been following the wrong path all along. Imagine if you were part of an organization built on the idea that its leaders were chosen by God, and then a document surfaces saying those leaders were actually worshipping a devil. It didn't just undermine the idea that Judas was a traitor. It called into question the entire foundation of Christianity as people knew it. If the disciples followed an evil God, what does that mean for future generations? For centuries, the church has based its authority on the idea that its leaders, the bishops, are spiritual descendants of Jesus' original disciples. But according to this gospel, those disciples were leading people in the wrong direction. This is why it was hidden, condemned, and nearly destroyed. Not only was it a new interpretation of the story, but it also posed a threat to the centuries-old belief system. In this gospel, Jesus reveals deep, universal secrets to Judas, truths that are shocking, even frightening. These aren't just small details, they're major revelations that change the way we see the entire story of creation, the disciples, and God. In this hidden story, Jesus isn't the son of that God. Instead, he comes from a much higher realm, a place beyond the physical world known as the immortal realm or the divine mind. This place is full of light and truth, and Jesus' mission is to wake people up and help them see that they are actually part of something much greater. But here's the kicker. Most of the disciples, the ones who are closest to Jesus, can't see this truth. They continue to worship the evil God, adhere to false teachings, and guide others towards the wrong path. Well, it turns out that Judas, though flawed, is the only one who's perceptive enough to understand what's really going on. Unlike the other disciples, engrossed in the worship of the evil God, Judas has the ability to see beyond the material world's illusions. In one of the key moments of this gospel, Jesus says to Judas, "Come away from the others, and I will teach you the mysteries of the kingdom." This significant moment demonstrates Judas's unique distinction from the others. He's not one of the 12 disciples this gospel says are misled. The cosmic plan assigns Judas a unique role. He is the chosen one to comprehend the true nature of reality. Judas, often seen as the ultimate betrayer, is actually the disciple who grasps the deepest, most mysterious truths. And those truths are terrifying. The God everyone thinks is good is really the enemy. And the real path to salvation comes from recognizing your own inner divinity, not worshipping an external force. The most mind-blowing revelation in this gospel is the idea that the God who created the world is actually evil. Gnostic texts describe this God, also known as Yaldabaoth or Sackless, as a dark and oppressive ruler. This false god tricked humanity into believing that it is the only God, when in fact it's just a lower being ruling over a flawed material world. Jesus explains to Judas that humanity has been misled for generations, tricked into worshipping this false god, and trapped in the cycle of life and death within the material world. This gospel depicts the material world as a prison that prevents souls from realizing their true divine potential. Only by gaining secret knowledge, the kind of knowledge that Jesus shares with Judas, can someone escape this prison and reconnect with the true divine realm. This idea of secret knowledge, often called gnosis, is a core concept in many Gnostic texts. It's about discovering our true selves, not just knowing facts. Gnosticism holds that we are all fragments of the divine mind, but we've forgotten this because the false god has trapped us in the physical world. The only way to escape this trap is to gain gnosis, or direct knowledge of our divine nature. It suggests that most people, including the 12 disciples, are blind to this truth. They follow the false god and don't realize that they're worshipping the very being that keeps them trapped. But Judas, with Jesus' help, sees through the deception. He's able to understand the truth about the divine realm and his own role in the cosmic struggle between light and darkness. At the heart of this gospel lies a question that has puzzled people for centuries. Was Judas really a betrayer, or was he the only one who understood Jesus' true mission? This secret gospel turns the idea of betrayal on its head, forcing us to rethink what we've always believed about Judas's role. According to the Gospel of Judas, Judas wasn't acting out of selfish motives when he handed Jesus over to the authorities. Instead, he was following a plan, one that Jesus himself had revealed to him. Jesus instructed Judas to surrender to the authorities, enabling him to carry out his divine mission. Rather than a betrayal, Judas's actions were part of a greater cosmic plan, one that Judas was uniquely able to understand. Most traditional accounts portray the 12 disciples as devoted followers of Jesus, who learn from him and propagate his teachings. But in this gospel, the perception of the disciples is very different. The gospel portrays Jesus as showing little respect for the 12. He even admits they don't understand him or his origins. At a pivotal moment, Jesus observes the disciples praying and mocks them. He doesn't just criticize their prayers, he outright tells them that they're worshipping the wrong God. It suggests that the other disciples are spiritually blind, unable to see the bigger picture. Judas is the only one who recognizes Jesus' true nature. while the other disciples remain stuck worshipping the evil God, the false creator. This creates a powerful contrast in perception. To the other disciples, Judas looks like a traitor. According to Jesus, only Judas sees the truth. This difference in perception is what drives the entire story. The disciples think they are following the right path, but they are actually lost, worshipping a god of chaos. However, only Judas realizes that the real goal is to free himself from the false god. Judas's alleged betrayal turns into a crucial deed, enabling Jesus to break free from the shackles of the false god's material world. But there's more to this story than just handing Jesus over to the authorities. Strangely, Judas's actions not only form part of Jesus's plan, but also serve as a form of sacrifice. By following Jesus's instructions, Judas plays a role that leads to his own doom. Jesus warns Judas that his actions will bring generations of curses and hatred. Judas knows this, but he still goes through with it. This makes Judas's role even more tragic. He isn't just betraying Jesus for selfish reasons. He's making a sacrifice that will cost him everything, including his reputation. Judas becomes a tragic figure, someone who understands the truth but must suffer for it. He knows he will always be remembered as the villain, even though he is the only one who understood Jesus' true mission. The idea that Judas might not be a villain but a misunderstood hero is one of the most intriguing parts of this gospel. But here's where things get even more complicated. As we saw earlier, Jesus refers to Judas as the 13th demon, hinting at a dark fate awaiting him. The Gospel of Judas doesn't give us easy answers. On one hand, Judas is portrayed as someone who understands more than the other disciples, someone who is close to Jesus and trusted with secret knowledge. On the other hand, the forces of darkness appear to determine his ultimate fate. In this gospel, perception is everything. While some may perceive Judas as a hero, the rest of the world will always view him as the betrayer. It's a story that plays with our understanding of good and evil, loyalty and betrayal, and leaves us wondering if Judas was ever truly in control of his own fate. It challenges everything we thought we knew about Judas' role in the story of Jesus. As a villain, Judas sees beyond the surface and knows the truth that others don't. However, this truth comes at a high cost, and ultimately, Judas's name remains cursed despite his actions being part of a larger divine plan. This re-examination of betrayal and perception prompts us to scrutinize the extent of our comprehension of the narratives we've heard. This gospel portrays Judas as the disciple with the most understanding, the one to whom Jesus reveals the deepest truths. Yet, for all of his understanding and unique relationship with Jesus, Judas's fate is far from enviable. In fact, it's terrifying. Jesus calls Judas the 13th demon, a title that seems to link him directly to the dark forces he was trying to overcome. Even though Judas is trusted with the knowledge of the true divine realm, his destiny is wrapped in shadows. Jesus tells him that he will not ascend to the divine light, but will instead take his place in the realm of darkness. This raises a disturbing question. Was Judas always destined to be part of the very evil he sought to escape? Did his understanding come at the price of his soul? This tragic twist suggests that Judas's role in the cosmic plan was both necessary and doomed from the start. He may have been the only one who saw the truth, but knowing the truth wasn't enough to save him. The Judas journey is one of sacrifice, not just of Jesus, but of himself. Despite his greater understanding, the forces of darkness seem to tie his soul and curse his name forever. If you are enjoying diving deep into the mysteries of the Gospel of Judas and questioning everything we thought we knew, you can support this channel by hitting that super thanks button. Every contribution makes a difference, and together we can keep uncovering the secrets that most people never even think to ask about. This gospel challenges everything we thought we knew, not just about Judas, but about the nature of salvation, divinity, and the cosmic order. It tells us that sometimes understanding the truth can come at a great personal cost. Judas's knowledge sets him apart from the other disciples, but it also leads him to a tragic end. It suggests that the path to enlightenment and freedom from the false god's control is fraught with danger. While knowledge of the divine truth is powerful, it doesn't guarantee a happy ending. Judas knew the truth, but that truth led him down a dark path where his soul became intertwined with the very forces he sought to fight. This story prompts us to delve deeper into our personal convictions and scrutinize the lessons we've received. It suggests that there's more to the world than meets the eye, and that the battle between light and darkness is not just something that happens on a cosmic level. It's something that happens within each of us every day. The path to understanding may not be easy, and the truths we uncover may not always lead to salvation. But it also invites us to explore further, to seek the hidden knowledge that could free us from the control of false forces, even if that journey is fraught with peril. This story is not just about Judas, it's about all of us. It's about the struggle to find truth in a world full of deception and the price we might pay for seeking that truth. Judas's story is one of both revelation and tragedy, reminding us that the lines between good and evil, light and darkness, are not always as clear as we might like them to be. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video,